Hello and welcome to the Climate Action Festival, It's Time, and to this session, The Need for Sustainability Within Retail. I'm Helena Mansell-Stopher and I'm the founder of Products to Change, and I'll be chairing this very interesting panel today. Now, 2020, more than any other year, has highlighted the need to drive sustainable change across all business, but most importantly, where industry meets the consumer through the changing landscape of retail. And that's why I'm extremely honoured to invite the BBC, Selfridges and the Walgreen Boots Alliance to this important conversation. So let's meet our panellists. First of all, how about we meet Rikesh Desai?
Hi, I'm Rikesh Desai, Licensing Director over at BBC Studios, and I oversee our merchandising, partnerships and interactive business.
Thank you, Rikesh. And Daniella?
Hi there, I'm Daniella Vega. I'm the Group Director for Sustainability across Selfridges Group, which includes the Selfridges in the UK, Brown Thomas in Ireland, and Arnott's in Ireland, Holt Renfrew in Canada, and De Bijenkorf in the Netherlands.
Thank you, Daniella. And Phil?
Thanks, Helena. Hi, everyone. I'm Phil Cumming. I head up sustainability for a cross-division called Global Brands within Walgreens Boots Alliance, where I'm responsible for a portfolio of brands, including well-known brands that you may have heard of, like No. 7, Soap and Glory, Liz Earle, for example. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Phil. And Eleanor?
So I'm Eleanor Barker. I'm the Global Brands Director for Gifting and New Brand Partnerships in Global Brands at Walgreens Boots Alliance.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Now, to get this started, Rikesh, I was going to come to you with our first question. A sustainable future is an ambitious target that needs specific goals to become achievable. How is this pandemic shining a light on sustainability like never before?
It's shining a huge light, I think. I think the pandemic has acted somewhat like a catalyst to all things sustainable, very much around how people behave and their lifestyle choices. If you think about sort of pre-pandemic, if we can even think that far back, and the way people used to travel, they shopped, interacted with people, all of those things have all changed. Just looking around here on the screen, how everyone's at home. We travel less. The way we buy and what we buy has changed, I believe. The way we interact with people, we are doing things more digitally, and all those things, from everything you read and see, seems to be having somewhat of a positive impact on the planet. Now, I think the reason it's a catalyst is because we've come to a point where it's a needs-must scenario, right? It's forced us into action. Which is a shame, really, when you think about it, that you need something like a pandemic to really trigger this behaviour. But I'm super optimistic that some of these new behaviours that people have adopted will continue, beyond this. I think this time has given people the opportunity to reflect and think about themselves, their family, their friends, but then also sort of the bigger picture, right? We're so busy in our day-to-day lives, we sometimes forget what's happening, and the planet is burning ultimately, right? We haven't got long, and the great thing about being part of this panel amongst this festival, and the label of it's great, it is time, right? And we need to start acting. We haven't got long, and I think people at the moment are absolutely focused on the pandemic, but very closely behind, from all the reports and studies I read, is sustainability. You read one report and people are saying sustainability is right at the top of their agenda in terms of what they think is the most important thing right now. So yeah, I think the pandemic's absolutely put a massive microscope under the term sustainability.
And I think that you're right. Thanks for that, Rikesh. And I think your very first opening statement there is actually, it's kind of propelled us forward. So let's hope that COVID kind of not COVID, but that the sustainability conversation keeps driving forward now that we've seen, now that the majority of people have now seen what we need to do. The retail industry is now starting to also show signs of real dedication to change. But with the sheer size of change that's required, where do you start? And Danielle, I'd like to come to you for this one, because I know that Selfridges has been looking at sustainable change for over a decade now. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about the journey that you've been going on and are on as a retailer.
Yeah, sure. I really resonate the points that are just raised, and I think one thing that the pandemic has brought to the forefront for us is that customers more than ever are joining the dots, making the connections between business and society and their own role that they play in contributing to a more sustainable future. And so, to answer your question in a nutshell, I think you start in business by looking at your purpose. And at Selfridges Group, we started with looking at our vision and formed a vision to reinvent retail. And this, came before the pandemic, but the pandemic has expedited this notion and changed it and made it far more of an opportunity for innovation, because let's be clear, retail is suffering extremely badly along with other industries. So if now is not the time to reinvent retail, then I don't know when that will be. But we started by looking at our purpose and looking at what gift our brand and our businesses could bring to accelerate change. And we've got a very loud voice in terms of shaping the cultural agenda through the medium of fashion and beauty and food. And so a decade ago, we decided to use this power and the power of having a platform where we can bring together different brands to tackle an issue. And so it was just after COP15 in Copenhagen, which was considered to be a complete disaster. And a conversation happened with my chairman and the director of the London Zoological Society, and it went along the lines of the challenge from my chairman to the ZSL director, saying, well, if only you environmentalists could sell sustainability like a retailer can sell product, and the gauntlet was thrown down. And so he challenged her to turn our shop into a playground and a window on an issue, which at the time was overfishing in the oceans. And so Project Ocean was launched in 2011 to try and highlight the issue of overfishing through changing our own procurement around fish sourcing, changing how we talk to customers through our restaurants. And every year it's grown. So we took squalane and microbeads out of our beauty products. We in 2015 focused on plastics in the ocean because it was rising up the agenda. And we're the first retailer to ban single-use plastic water bottles. And I think the role that retailers can play are aggregators of information and sharing that with customers in a very palatable way that customers can engage with the issue and make better purchasing decisions.
Totally. And I think if you look at your shop front and just how a consumer engage with brands and retailers, there's a great opportunity there to really drive a sustainable story and take the consumer on a journey. Now, Phil, each retail format has its own challenges, and as a fast-moving consumer goods company, where do you begin this journey as well? Because I guess they're very different challenges that you might have at Boots versus the Selfridges, or not, actually.
I think there's probably quite a lot of parallels, I think. And actually, what I'll do is I'll say some stuff, from my side, and I think I'll get Ellie to chip in.
Of course.
From a brand point of view, because I think there's two angles to this, I guess. But as Daniella said, the world is changing fast. We need to, I think, whether you're from a brand side or retail side, we need to be making it easy for consumers to have a positive impact on wellbeing, communities, planet, for all that we do. Our brand is why we exist. Why we, what we sell, the relationship we have with the consumer. So effectively changing societal expectations, resource constraints, climate change, biodiversity. These all provide, I guess, strategic implications for our brand. But having said that, whilst those challenges are quite diverse and complex, doesn't mean that they need to be solved all at once. Although we do need to clearly step up our efforts somewhat. So, you asked how do we begin this journey. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think the important thing is you do get underway, and I think increasingly we need to be moving at pace. We need to obviously, because every single brand, everything, whether it's from an FMCG or retail context, will be unique. There's a whole things you need to take into account. But the big thing, and I think Daniella touched on, vision, purpose. How does that kind of sit into this? What do you want to shoot for? Why and when? What basically is going to provide that North Star for what you're trying to achieve? Because that will provide a useful framing for any supporting things you might want to do. You need to have a set of foundations. You need to kind of decide as a brand, what are the givens? What are the things that you want to stand for? What are the things that effectively will be minimums that should apply regardless of what you do across your product range and your suppliers, whether that's around plastics, labour and human rights, sourcing of things like palm oil, wood, what have you, increasingly pushing into climate and water, which historically probably haven't been givens in the past. And I think the big thing for me, though, is that's fine. That's all that provides the foundational bit, but kind of actually thinking small but transformational. So identifying one or two areas where you can tackle at a time but can make a big difference. So pick something that might on the face of it look small or tactical, but actually if you're successful can be pretty transformative if you can actually scale. We may well touch on this later, but I'll mention it briefly now. We've just collaborated with BBC around the BBC Earth range, for example. Very much looking at how can we bring to life more sustainable products from the bathroom point of view to the consumer. And that enabled us to completely rethink consumption in an area of the home which often is overlooked. Recycling tends to be lower. And as a result of that, we've got no single-use plastics in the products. We've switched to bar-based formats. We've got reusable accessories. It's cruelty-free. We've also, the range is also certified carbon neutral. But the important thing is actually what we've achieved is transferable and, importantly, scalable. And that's what we really wanted to see is actually, can we bring something which is from the mass market and actually get this out there and scale? So I'll stop there from a kind of a technical, more of a technical point of view, and I'll hand over to Ellie to give more of a brand perspective on this.
Yes, please.
Echoing what Phil has said and Danielle, it's really starting with the brand purpose and the brand vision. So, we set ourselves some really big goals actually before the pandemic, and I think the pandemic has only highlighted the need to do this, but maybe fast tracked some of it and made some of it more challenging because obviously delivering whole ranges during a pandemic has not been easy. But just from some recent research we've done, we know that 80% of consumers tell us that the environment is the most important thing that we as a company should be tackling, and we know as well half of UK shoppers, for instance, try and spend at companies that support causes they care about. So there is both a clear business imperative to get behind this, as well as a kind of moral, ethical obligation as a business. For 2020, we set ourselves a super ambitious goal to be the first high street retailer to eliminate throwaway plastic from our gifting range.
Wow.
And this strategy has actually really helped us drive massive behavioural change within our own business. It's a totally different mindset for our kind of wider group, and it's pushed the boundaries of development. For years and years and years, we've developed a leading gift range, but this has really pushed us into a completely different space. And the materials that we used, the suppliers we partnered with, the designs even that we took to market. Christmas is always a challenge, and gifting in particular, because people expect a certain degree of glitz and glitter and glamour, and historically people's perception of what an ecologically sound range and more environmentally friendly range might look like for them might have meant compromise. And actually for us, with that really clear vision about removing the single-use plastic and delivering on a beautiful range, it really helped us push the boundaries of development. So we haven't compromised. Things do look beautiful, they do look glittery and glamorous, but they are recyclable, so it can be done. So I think having that really crystal clear vision has helped us really push the boundaries.
And I guess, like Phil said, focusing on one area to kind of really give you the energy that you need behind it to drive across business. and then you get the
Absolutely.
win, and then I guess that can then be the catalyst for the next and the next and the next.
It's a massive step, and it's a big piece of progress. Is it perfection? Absolutely not, but it's a massive step in the right direction. And now that we've got all that knowledge and technical insight as well about how to deliver on zero single-use plastic, it then helps us go on to the next level, which is you're talking about carbon neutrality and how we make more things vegan and how we encourage cruelty-free across every single product that we do. You know, there's lots of opportunities for us. But removing single-use plastic was a really clear win for us in this year.
And I guess we'll have a huge impact as well.
Yeah, we've taken out over 2,000 tonnes of throwaway plastic out of the range. And it's an incredible result. And I'm so proud to say that our own developed range, you know, has zero single-use plastic. So everything can be, you know, reduced, reused, recycled. So it's a brilliant story there for consumers. They can go in and get all their favourite brands, but they can also make sure that designed to be, you know, either reused significantly, so things like makeup bags and tins that can be reused, or go on to be fully recyclable. So it's a, you know, it's a moment I'm so proud of, because the team have really pushed the boundaries of development.
And you should be. It sounds amazing, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. Let's move on with my next question to Rikesh. And actually, if we think about the conversation that we had so far, so looking at products, how can we as an industry make changes that enhance what we do and the lives of the consumer through sustainability? A bit, you know, similar to what positive opportunity rather than a responsibility or a necessity, Rikesh?
I think the way the retailers have just spoken about it, it's making a commitment right up front. I think that's the big important thing here. And that comes from people like ourselves that work within big brand organizations that can have influential decisions on the direction of those brands and products, and consumer engagement points. And I think it's about making a commitment and putting somewhat of your stake out there. There's far too many brands, I believe, and someone mentioned products and brands with purpose. There's far too many brands out there that shy away from this. And I'm delighted to be part of this panel where we're all like-minded and we're actually facing into something like sustainability and brave and be able to sort of pin ourselves to the fact that we want to commit to change, something that is ambitious, that is deliberate in the direction we're going in, because it's already been shown that consumers are looking to act more sustainably, live more sustainably, shop ethically, greener products, and whatever we label it as. They want it out there. So it's upon us to share, learn from each other, collaborate, to really bring those products to market. Now, when we think about those products, as we said, it's progress, right? There isn't, you know, you can't, you know, ultimately it's going to be very difficult to find a item or product that's going to be completely, you know, zero impactful on the product unless you're offsetting and things like that, or you're doing something really locally manufactured, sourced and delivered. And so what it's about is where you can identify those margins of gain in your product development cycle, but at the same time, keep at the forefront of your mind that the product still has to be of use to the consumer, right? So the innovation, the creative, because it still is, it's what we at VC, we term it as mindful consumerism. That's where we're moving it from consumerism to mindful consumerism, because there's a nice balance there, which is the product can't be frivolous, can't be throwaway ultimately, and it has to have some sort of substitutional impact, sort of application to it. So otherwise, consumers just won't see the value. So we can do as much as we want in the background with our source of materials, with our manufacturing partners and production partners. But ultimately, if consumers don't have the opportunity to think about, you know what, I'm going to switch now. I'm going to have a choice to switch from this product to this product, which will have a positive impact or less of an impact on the planet, they won't, right? So it's really got to come down to partners like ourselves, I think, sharing, learning, and collaborating together, as opposed to what would have been in the past something which would have been seen as a competitive advantage, right? When you walk down a high street, I think, you know, we might have to put some of that to the side now. I've read enough reports to say people are creating solutions and actually just putting it out there and saying, right, I've found a solution that is absolutely more sustainable, has a positive impact. Take it, use it within your own processes. And I think that's the way it has to move forward and sort of liberate some of that. When we think of it from a brand owner, because we don't really get involved in the production of products in studios, it's really important, I think, for us to be super clear with other like-minded brands to start setting consistent standards. Because what you don't want is to have a product over here built, made to a particular sustainable standard, and another one over here to a different one, because actually the efficiencies are lost instantly when you've got factories and processes being inefficient. So you've got to start to bring together some of that and go, right, if we're going to make certain of these products, there's a minimum hurdle that you have to achieve, so you know you're hitting certain levels that are going to have a positive impact in terms of the manufacturing process. I think that's where we've got to get to, and it's going to be tough because you've got so many different forces being applied from a business perspective, manufacturing perspective. But there is, I believe, an opportunity for us to come together and share and learn from that.
And then I guess you've got different categories. Some categories are harder to implement change dependent on the material solutions or just the way that they're made. The materials that they're made from, I guess, different categories are going to be harder to turn around. But it sounds like there's loads of innovation happening. Daniella, what's next for sustainability in terms of materials? So approach to design, consumer demands, and real industry-driven innovation. Because I know that that's one of the pillars that you're looking at as a business, isn't it, on the materials innovation side of things?
Yeah, I think it plays to the point that Rikesh makes about, well, there's two things, isn't there? There's setting the floor. So from a compliance angle, to make sure everything that you sell comes up to scratch. But there's also raising the roof, and that's the particularly exciting thing about working in retail and sustainability. And we do both, of course, as every responsible retailer should. But we took this a step further in August when we launched Project Earth, and Project Earth was to build on this wave of customer awareness. And you asked the question earlier, why, what's the benefit of doing it? It's to respond to our customers. And sometimes we have to respond to ensure that all of the products reach that kind of floor. And sometimes we have to respond in creating that demand. And so it's very much a collaborative creation. So we're creating new demand. And it was with this in mind that we launched Project Earth in August, a huge initiative which was launched for the period of 10 weeks. Just as we'd reopened our stores after lockdown 1. But we went for it because we felt that the time was exactly right. And Project Earth was really a series of experiments which would make it easier for our customers to buy better, to shop in more sustainable ways. And we talked about 3 areas that they could do this, and one was absolutely materials. So we made commitments that by 2025, 9 of our base materials, which have the highest environmental impact, would be certified and sustainable by 2025. So big materials like cotton, viscose, like forest fibers, and to our food halls, meat and soy and cocoa. So materials was one, and we've introduced a labelling scheme, which is a very straightforward way that we don't badge products sustainable. We'll say, this product has organic cotton, or this product is forest friendly because it has certified material in it. So I think that's really important as well, that the clarity of the communication over materials is about that material. It's not saying, this is a sustainable product. So materials was the first thing. The second thing was models. And this is super important, I think. And by that, I mean circular models. So in August, we launched a resale proposition called Selfridges, where customers can come and sell their pre-loved items, and they can also buy pre-loved items. We've had an overwhelming response from customers to this service. Just in the first 10 weeks, we saw 20,000 customers coming to our Selfridges service a week. So huge need, which I think comes from this re-evaluation of how our customers and citizens in general are thinking about what they want and what they need from a product. So it's materials, models, and the other models that we introduced were rental services and refill in beauty, and a repair service, which was a huge success as well. So customers bringing in their garments for repair, everything from a button to a pair of Louboutin shoes. I mean, it's and we've had an overwhelming response to that. And the third M, if you like, was around our mindset. So we launched a series of events, bringing our community in the widest sense together to talk about, you know, is sustainable fashion an oxymoron? Is there such a thing as ethical consumption? And if so, what does that really look like? And not being afraid to shy away from issues like overconsumption, and having a discussion on that with the broadest of community. So that was an experiment which we're now taking the learnings from, so that we can then go on to scale that type of circular business, increase the better materials, and we had over 300 new brand partnerships as a result. And we know that our customers want this, so it's a response to what customers are actually demanding of a retailer like Selfridges.
I think it's amazing that you've launched so many different elements, but it's actually shown the consumer that, you know, you can shop, we just need to shop in a different way. We just need to switch our mindset. You know, I think it's amazing to be able to show, it's just kind of showing what the future of possibilities could be within how we consume products, and then, you know, how we scale all of those different business models across multiple retail.
That's
formats.
right, and it's got to be fun, and it's got to be fashion forward, and it's as Rikesh says, it can't be drab and boring. And I think we've left that behind, that sustainability somehow equals drab and boring. We certainly have at Selfridges anyway. Yeah. It's now, you know, you look at Gen Z and there's no space between their values action gaps and their targeted focus on purpose. So yeah, we as retailers just need to catch up and reinvent ourselves fast enough. I think that's the challenge.
Totally. Well, actually, that leads me into my next question, talking about the Edelman's brand survey. An incredible 75% of people look to brands to solve social, ecological, and individual problems. And what do consumers want, and why is 2021 a time for leadership and brand-driven decision action? Maybe I'll come to a Walgreens Boots Alliance. I don't know who wants to answer that one first. Eleanor, Phil.
Phil, and I'll hand over to you. I think there's a few things. I mean, yeah, totally echoing what Danielle said about that, about, you know, the environmental concerns being what consumers are absolutely demanding. We know that if I look at the list of what consumers are saying are the top 5 concerns, environmental concerns make up 3 of those 5 concerns. The other 2, not without, you know, it's a massive surprise at the moment, in our health. So, you know, along with health, you know, environmental concerns are really pushing on people's core and what they want for the future, for themselves, for their families, for their future families. I think, you know, why now? I mean, personally, we can't wait, and professionally, we can't wait. If we sit on this and hope this is a fad, a passing fad, you know, as a business, we'll be absolutely left behind, as we well should be, because, you know, that's not what consumers want. And we should be using our massive buying power, our position on the high street, to bring affordable options to people that are more environmentally friendly, more eco-conscious, allowing people to make positive changes without having to compromise, but, you know, so they can afford to do it. It doesn't have to be, and I think that's the thing, you know, before people used to think about maybe more eco-conscious choices being either very expensive or also being, you know, a bit boring, a bit, you know, compromised, or very brown and bare. And I think, you know, we can use our big buying power to influence the suppliers we work with to develop really innovative solutions, whether the materials they're using, the fabrics we're using. So, you know, we've invested a lot into new fabrics for Christmas 2020, for instance, that are fully recyclable, looking at using a kind of metallic board which looks very glamorous and glitzy, but actually is 100% biodegradable, so either can be recycled or composted, and yet you wouldn't know that when you look at it. So you know, we've been able to use our buying power as a retailer to invest in these more niche technologies. And we really hope that we can be the foot in the door on this, because we want to make that really accessible for everyone. It shouldn't be that the eco-conscious choices for suppliers are the niche option. It should be that they are offered by every single supplier out there, because it is what retailers are demanding, that we are demanding options that are the most environmentally sound that they could be, that we're not going on just the cheapest. We've got to be pushing on the most environmentally friendly. And I think that's where, as a retailer, we've got such responsibility, but also massive power to influence positive change.
Totally, because I guess if you're the manufacturer and a retailer's asking you for a certain kind of product, you're going to want to deliver that product. So the innovation is going to start coming through all the suppliers. So eventually, actually, if we look 5 years down the road, sustainability isn't a choice. It is just what we do. It's just the norm.
I mean, that's certainly my dream, is that we can be that wedge in the door, pushing it open, and that our other partners in the retail, the business and the high street will follow suit, if they're not already doing so, because it should be something that we're all getting behind and we're all doing for the good of the planet.
I think think about the retail landscape and to some of the insights that the guys in the panel have mentioned already. Consumers will ultimately make the decision with their wallets, and as we've all just said, it's so high up on the agenda. It's going to happen where consumers will start looking at brands, and they already do, right? They make some very clear decisions based on brands' values or the purpose or the voice they put out there. And those brands that don't have a voice, I think, will lose in the long run. It's easier said because we don't have retail. So as I said, there's so many influential factors. But as a brand, you've got to have a voice. And I think sustainability has got to be up there amongst the sort of CSR and all the other things in terms of just connecting with consumers. And I think it's better. You don't have to be holier than thou. You don't have to go, we are up there, we're campaigning and all that kind of stuff. But you've got to evoke change, and you've got to have a purpose, because actually it's worse doing nothing. And consumers are starting to see straight through that. And you've seen enough movements in the last 12 months to tell you otherwise, that brands can very quickly become hero to zero by not addressing this point. I think more brands that lean into this, commit to it, there's a high likelihood they'll survive in the long run, regardless of how deep their pockets are, how big their retail doors are.
I see you nodding, Phil. I was going to say. You want to say something?
No. I was just going to say that authenticity and transparency, just building on what Rikesh was saying, and I guess on Ellie as well, is absolutely key. We need to be. Transparency is only going in one direction. We need to be much more open and honest about where we are on this journey. Gone are the days, I think, where brands can get away with this. We have to adopt a bit of a posture of humility, actually, in this, and open up a lot more, because actually, if we don't, actually, it will come back to bite us. And then just building on kind of some of the other comments around, ultimately, I was reminding myself, actually, there used to be a bit of a debate, when I first sort of started working, is this about choice editing or is this about consumer choice? And I think actually, increasingly, this is about choice editing. This is about how do we make products meet consumer needs, desires, expectations in a way which also happens to be better for people, planet, communities. But it has to be something that they do want, because obviously there's no point making a niche product if they're not going to buy. But also it's about thinking about not just about the consumer needs of the now, it's also thinking about actually what are the consumer needs of the future, because actually that's what we also need to be kind of thinking about as well.
You're right, and actually we know that the generations behind definitely me, they're even more conscious of the planet, and actually there's so much youth activism like we've seen, so we know that the consumers of tomorrow are going to be even are going to be very different to the consumers of today. Danielle, I wanted to just come back to that closing the loop conversation. So closing that product material loop in line with circular economic principles. How can retail lead in this area? For example, just some of the things that you were talking about before, maybe adding recycling into that. Can you touch a little bit more on some of the things that Selfridges are doing there, please?
Yeah, I mean, so I mentioned the kind of resale offer that we've launched, which is going well. I think the challenge for us on that is to be able to scale that, and also scale it in a way which is mindful of environmental impact. So the work that we're doing at the moment is to look back, and we know some really interesting short-term things. We know things like it attracted new customers to Selfridges, and of those new customers, of all of the new customers that came through Selfridges during that 10-week period, just under half of them shopped the Project Earth edit. So that was either circular or better materials. So that's, I mean, for me, that's a resounding short-term tick in the box that this kind of stuff is wanted. I suppose our responsibility as a retailer is to grow that demand so that we can reinforce that fact that the customers want that kind of service and want to shop like that. And the other thing that we need to be very careful is that we're not just, you know, the model of retail is very much a kind of take, make, use, lose in terms of the energy and the materials that are used in our economy. We need to turn that into a circular model. So we need to ensure that these circular models that we're offering to our customers actually do mitigate the carbon impact of a kind of traditional retail model. So if it's a resale model, we need to make sure that the carbon is being taken out. If it's a rental model, we need to look at every aspect to make sure that rental is actually reducing the carbon impact of the average wardrobe. So, which is why I think I'm a true believer of lighting lots of small fires and experimenting, because we just don't have that data at the moment, and we need to look at it over time, so that over time a business like Selfridges can say with confidence, we've changed the way that person shops. They're now renting their occasional wear. They're reselling their luxury handbags, and they're buying pre-loved as well. And they're taking their beauty products back for refilling. And so it's that look at the behavior change, of the long-term behavior change of the customer, which is my ultimate goal, and how we will know that we're changing the way we shop, because ultimately we've got to stop over consuming, and the fashion industry has a very heavy impact on carbon. You know, it's worse than shipping and aviation combined. It's there are variable studies of what the impact is, but from 4 to sort of 8% of our global carbon. So we know we need to change it, but we need to do that in a very mindful way. So we're not just building, you know, a circular model on top of a traditional retail model, and it's just kind of not tackling the problem that we have of tackling our impact on the planet.
You're right. I guess it's looking at all those multiple models all at the same time. And actually, I think partnerships, you know, like Rikesh, Phil, Eleanor said before, the BBC and Boots have partnered. I think there's lots of NGOs and some amazing companies out there that can drive some real positive change. And I know that Walgreens and Boots, you've been working with the UK's Plastic Pact, haven't you? An initiative led by WRAP, the plastic charity, in a collaboration with lots of other organisations. I know we're coming to the end of this, but before we close, I'd love for you just to tell me a little bit more about that and why you got involved in this.
Yeah, so I think we've already touched on a little bit. You know, the size and complexity of these issues can't be addressed by any one solution or one organisation. So plastics, for instance, you know, we need to completely rethink the way we design, use and reuse. Plastics are not just about packaging, it's about the product, it's about the formulations. In our case, it's about formulations. You know, niche solutions aren't good enough. We need to obviously get mass adoption. The key to scaling that is probably in working in collaborative partnerships. It's not enough for a few businesses to lead. We need collaborative, concerted effort involving businesses, investors, governments, civil society, consumers, to tackle all of these issues by sparking fundamental shifts in mindset and behavior. And although many brands, I guess, you know, still look for a point of difference with their own competitors, I think more and more brands also realizing they need to collaborate to build a sustainable future. And in many ways, I'd say, is collaboration is definitely fast becoming the new competition. So we signed up to UK Plastics Pact a few years ago. Obviously, multi-stakeholder initiative bringing together all kinds of organisations, individuals in the plastics value chain. And the reason was that we want to be part of a global movement for change to tackle plastic waste and move towards a more circular economy for plastics. It's as simple as that. And obviously, looking back across the last 18 months or so, all the things we've done, and Ellie touched on the stuff we've done around stripping plastics out of our giftware ranges, the stuff we've done around products, for example. We've stripped out plastics out of our baby wipes, for example. We've launched a recycling scheme in collaboration with a technology partner, which has been hugely successful for hard to recycle, so stuff that you can't recycle in the home. Mm. And of course, the BBC, all of those require collaboration. So whether that's internal within the business or external through relationships, suppliers, delivery partners, civil society, what have you. So absolutely, Plastics Pact is a key initiative to help us all drive a collective effort on plastics.
Thank you. Well, I mean, we've come to the end of our session, and that was such a fascinating conversation, and thank you everybody for being part of it. We know that legislation is slowly changing, but I really do think that the way that we're really going to hit the targets that we really need as a business does this and is innovative on their own, while government catches up and then puts that legislation in place. I really think that business really needs to drive this charge as well. So huge thank you to Eleanor, to Phil, to Danielle and to Rikesh for all of your time today, and I'm really looking forward to what you do next on the amazing innovation that you do next. I'll be keeping an eye out for it.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.